I was thinking, like the Beatles' Day in the Life, this is two wonderful ideas blended into one. You had this semi-autobiographical tale of yourself, really, when you were a teenager, growing up, making these little monster movies. You also wanted to make a movie about these midnight freight trains getting, classified possessions from Area 51 to secret locations. Was it a eureka moment when you thought, actually, these two could be one movie?
It was, and I was desperate for one because I had a group of characters that I loved, but no sort of cinematic aspect to it besides just this group of kids. I loved the characters, but I didn't have a kind of any spectacle to speak of or a sort of a reason to call people to the theater in a way. And it felt like the story was missing a way to take the internal life of the main character and sort of bring it to the fore. And then I had this other idea that was a kind of premise with no characters. There was a sort of monster movie idea. And when I realized that that could actually be, in a way, the kind of physical manifestation, the sort of metaphor that I was looking for, and provide the spectacle I needed, it was, I called Steve and I was like, here's a crazy idea, what if? And he was like, yes, that's it. So that was a relief.
It's set in a small town, Ohio, 1979, and it might as well have been shot in Steven Spielberg's head in 1979. There's an awful lot of that sort of beautiful references to movies that he was involved in, wrote and directed, and that sense of place and time that we know through his movies. Was there a part of you that was a little bit worried that, well, this might come off as Donovan here? There might be a sense in some people's minds, this is just a tribute to somebody we love.
Well, here's the thing. Because it was inspired by the time in my life making these films, that was the original idea. The fact is that time in my life was so massively impacted by the films he made that it wasn't like I'm going to try and lift shots or moments or scenes from films. It was, what did it feel like to be that age at that time? And part of that just, inexorably is connected to the cinema of the time, most and many of the films, of course, being Spielberg either written, directed, or produced. The other thing is, because Steven, it literally is an Amblin movie. Super 8 is a Steven Spielberg production, an Amblin movie. It actually was freeing to make the movie what I really wanted it to be and what the DNA was truly. If he had not been involved, I probably would have been infinitely more self-conscious and probably avoid certain things that might have been seen as kind of Amblin-esque or Spielbergian. But because he was a producer, I actually felt free to say, this is what the movie wants to be, and letting it be that. One final thing is, any film that takes place in the U.S., small town, kids, late 70s, it's going to be very hard to not feel like it's dealing with, or looking at things the way so many of the films, Goonies or obviously, E.T. Did. And so I know that we're kind of in that territory, but having Steven Spielberg as a producer on the movie made me feel like, well, in Star Trek we had, pointy ears and lasers in space. It's like you're kind of given a little bit of latitude in that regard.
Well, he is the Norman Rockwell of modern cinema, so it's hard to avoid, all right.
I think you're absolutely right.
I was living in LA for a little while early last year, and I went along to. I was thinking your mom, Gerald and Carol, would see you, I'm guessing, as somewhat New York Jewish. I think that's probably the way they felt when you were born, that you were part of that clan. And yet the US-Ireland Alliance decided, do you know what? J.J. Abrams is Irish. I was at the dinner. How did your family kind of take it that suddenly you're Irish?
Well, I'll say that, just the way at our wedding, my father-in-law, my wife, Kathleen Ann McGrath, her father wore a yarmulke at our wedding. And it was the most sweet thing I've ever seen. And I think reciprocally, my parents had a Guinness, I think, the night that they learned I was going to be made an honorary Irishman. So I could not be more proud, and having spent some time in Ireland with our whole family, we couldn't adore the country more, and I'm very proud to be even more associated with Ireland now than just marrying my wife.
Very last question. You had a wonderful story about being in Ireland and losing, I think, passports and sort of valuable stuff. But a band Garda, and I'm amazed by this because she apparently was able to Google and contact your agent, which I would think a band Garda in the middle of nowhere, unless she's subscribing to IMDb Pro, the idea I found that amazing. Was there a truth?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it was 100% true. This woman who was working alone in the Garda station, the wallet was turned in. She became a detective, and within, I think, 15 minutes was on the phone with my agent in Los Angeles, finding out that, I was actually in Ireland and wanted me to be alerted that she had my wallet. 2 hours, we'd driven 2 hours out of the town. We turned around, drove 2 hours back, and I got there to pick up the wallet, and she was alone in this station. And I said, oh my God, you have no idea, you've just saved my life. Thank you so much. I'd love to get my wallet back, and she said, "Well, how does Lost end?" And I was like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe this is the situation I'm in."
And she stole the money too, right?
Took the money. All the money was gone.
I thought that. Yeah, Irish
No,
cards.
she was fantastic.
Lovely, jubbly.
Thank you so
Time's
much.
off. Nice to talk to you, man. Yeah, no,